It's like, hey, if you have a question about Charisma on Command, don't go to Charlie.
Yeah.
Charlie's going to be writing. It's the most important thing we do, and it's the only thing he does.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we had and it was great. I mean,
Dude, that was our
Charlie,
biggest jump was that year where it was just like, I have one job, and it was funny because I'm writing about Charisma and I'm speaking to no one. You know, I'm like, I'm talking to no team members
on your webcam,
pulling on a wealth of information from the past.
Went into a cave. And then I would say we could give a handful of other ones, but the other one was really gaining confidence in the product. I took some time. We created our Charisma University course, and then I went back and just redid it. I thought it was good, but I was like, there's pieces I don't like. And
you redid it for the third. It was the
third or fourth
right?
time, yeah. But it just changed the tenor of my voice when I recommended it. And we have data that tracks the conversions, and they leap. The difference between, hey guys, like I made this and I think you should check it out, and guys, I love this course. I put my heart and soul into it.
It's absolutely the fastest way to become confident.
I think you'll really like it, and I hope you decide to check it out.
That's awesome.
Just incredible. And just if there is a lesson here for people listening, like do whatever you can to invest in your product and be able to genuinely recommend it. It was such a huge thing for us.
I think there were certain products and channels that Jared loved, and when he really believed in it, you could hear it. It was just different.
Yeah.
It converted differently. And that's awesome. Like, I think when we were building that courses company, that courses business, Jared was like, if I'm pushing to a course on writing, I can guarantee it'll be one of the best writing courses you can take. Like I'll believe in it because it's the best that I can do. And that's so cool to hear. Like I think you see it with some of Tony Robbins' stuff before. Like he was sometimes a little like less confident, and now it's just like he does one video, it's like 500,000 people sign up in a second on these Facebook communities and groups because he believes in it. I mean, he really and it works, and you feel confident about it.
He's seen it. So I think intelligently didn't answer my original question about the exit and gave us some groundwork to get here. But now I'm curious. Was it tough at the point of the exit to remove yourself, or had you done a good job of building that apparatus? They didn't, sounds like, want you to be their indentured servant. And then tell us about like the sale, what you can about the multiple and how that is even discussed and looked at in the digital space.
Sure. Well, I'll say, so again, I built the company, I think maybe like Ben did, is that we structured it in a way where it's a system, it's a machine in a sense that I don't have to be there involved with every detail. I was super involved, very hands-on with the creative. I really cared a lot about the visual. So I worked with really cool artists and worked on the logos and the graphics and the design. I mean, that was like my baby. But aside from that, I could even step away from that. I had designers, we had teams that could handle a lot of stuff. So I wasn't required. And I built that from the beginning for a number of reasons. Number one being like, if I get hit by a bus, I want this thing to keep going. I want the brand to live on beyond me. So in a way, it was always going to be easy for me to be plucked out of this thing at any moment. It didn't really require me. It was a matter of resources. Like someone had to get paid to do all the roles that I did, but it wasn't like I was that critical. Jared was more critical, especially as he really kind of was involved in the content, was the content, led that content team. So Jared hired a number two, who's been with us for years now, Alec, who now runs all content at Wisecrack, and he's unbelievable. He's incredible. So like, that was number one, was making sure that we all had the sort of, if we get hit by a bus, we all have some backups. That was helpful.
Is that the person that makes the content now that Jared has left?
Yeah.
Alec is in charge of it?
Yeah, Alec Opperman. So he runs the content team at Wisecrack, and he's managing all the scripts and all the research team and making sure that the content is what it needs to be. Mm-hmm. So for me, like, what was the big like come to Jesus, so to speak, of like, I want to move on. I have a really good friend of mine out in New York who just said, like, let me step back for 1 second. So first of all, our company was on the rise, doing great. We were growing like crazy, built a Facebook team and started to build other platform teams. And then in, I think it was 2018, Facebook changes its algorithm because of Cambridge Analytica. And so all of our Facebook distribution overnight sort of died. I mean, I think it was 99% of traffic turned off for all publishers. It wasn't just for us. Wow. But that was a pretty big hit. And then you had BuzzFeed and Vice, the two biggest kahunas in the industry, missed their numbers by a third each. And that also drove like these huge shockwaves to the industry. And then there were reports of the duopoly. So all the advertising dollars, the whole vision and the whole pitch for what Wisecrack was going to do was, we're going to build huge audiences. All these advertising dollars are going to shift over to digital, and we're going to be there with big audiences to be able to capture some of that. Well, it turned out 90%, so $9 out of 10 were going straight to Facebook and to Google. They were going to the duopoly. They were going to the platforms instead of to the publishers. So all that became like, hey, we built our business predicated on advertising, not on courses or direct sales like you guys. All these elements, it was like consecutively all happened in early 2018. So we saw things were starting to crumble. And so that was a really miserable year of just trying to rush to profitability. That's where I had to fire a lot of people. That's where I had to make the company stand up on its own 2 feet. And I have a very good friend of mine in New York who said, Jacob, look, you've been at this thing for approaching 8 years now. Doesn't have the potential that it once did. It's just frankly that industry doesn't have that kind of trajectory. Clearly, it's not, the biggest guys can't do it, so the smaller guys won't either. You don't own it all. It's not like you're an individual YouTuber making $1 million a year or $5 million a year like a lot of our peers did in the industry. So that wasn't on the table. We had the pressure of investors too saying, where's our return? Yeah. And so all those elements, he just looked at me frankly and said, I think, Jacob, it's time for you to sell the company. And give yourself a timeline. Like, can you sell this thing in the next, I don't know, is it 6 months or 12 months? If you do, great. If you don't, fine. You shut it down and that's it. You move on. And I think there was like that moment of it. First of all, hearing that, I was like, oh my God, he's absolutely right. Yeah. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I was so miserable. Just every day, just trying to think, what am I going to do? How's this thing going to work? How are we going to get it to where we wanted it to be? It's profitable, but it's not hugely profitable. So it's not like it's the kind of thing that I want to bank. It kind of like as an investor today, would you put your dollar on that chip? Like, would you bet on that horse? Again, right now, where you are, all things being equal. And I was like, no, it wasn't it for me in my career. I was like, I put my time into it. I loved it. It's still doing great, but it wasn't like it was going to go from 0 to 60 again, or from 10 to 100 again. So him saying that to me was like, that's absolutely right. And where I stood in all that was, I'm ready to move on. Like this was the first job where I had that I would loved, where I could use every single skill that I had, from design to production to technical skills to creative to filmmaking, audience development, partnerships. I got to do everything, fundraising. It was awesome. But I'd done my time. I was ready to move on. So in my matrix of thinking through what I wanted, and I did use the Tony Robbins method here. It's called the RPM method. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Did you ever use that?
I've what is it?
The rapid planning method? Rapid
planning. That's from, what's the program? Something Edge, Get the Edge. I've listened to all of his 80s and 90s audio
on
tape
YouTube.
programs.
So, but yeah, I got the YouTube copy. But it was exactly what I needed to hear, but I needed to first start with painting that vision of that. What's that result that I want? And in the case of thinking that through is like, I really want a scenario where my investors make money. I want a scenario where our team gets to keep their jobs. I want a scenario where the brand and the channel continues. Like, we're not letting our audience down by shutting this whole thing down. And I want to be able to step away. That was another big piece for me, was like, I want to be able to leave. Yeah. Because I don't want to be indebted. I don't want to spend another 5 years here. I want to be able to be free, take some time off, and think about what I want to do next. And
is a big financial windfall the unspoken fifth thing? Or you really were just like, if I can get investors' money and do well by the audience and get out, that's a win?
I think the windfall, look, it was a perk for sure. Like, if I could craft the deal and find a buyer who could make sure that I got money as well, that, because after years of deferring realistic salaries and not having, like, again, a lot of our peers making millions of dollars as YouTubers, it was like, that would be nice to make some money here.
I'm just curious where your mindset was at. Like, would you have sold for, you get 50 grand? Or was it like, no, when I say sell, I really mean I also get a big payday?
It's a good question. I think there was an element of, depending on what, so I think I went into a mindset of, I've decided that I want to sell. Mm-hmm. I've decided that this is what I want to do. Of course, I had to talk to Jared about this too. We walked through our scenarios and said, what are the scenarios here? Like, we sell, we don't sell. And we kind of mapped out, like, where does this play out? And is it interesting to us or not? Like, is that, if we don't sell and we keep growing, are we going to be just the same forever? Like, is it going to be the same size for a long time? So we mapped that out and thought that stuff through. But in thinking that stuff through, I think we came to a place where it was important to sell. And in a way, it was important to sell and we would get the best options. I would enter into a mindset of, I'm going to go down a process. Like, 50% of my time now is going to be spent on drumming up business. And we weren't we were big enough to get an investment banker, but no one was really interested. To be honest, every investment banker we talked to was like not touching this industry, not touching the space. Like digital publishing, especially in 2018, was just it was a turd. No one wanted to touch it. So I basically learned how to become an investment banker and drummed up opportunities and prospects. Talked to every partner we'd ever talked to large media companies, and went in and just hit the pavement and did a roadshow for about 6 months, speaking to everybody we could, and understanding who was real, who was not, who was looking to buy, who had money, who didn't. And that was super interesting process, very exhausting, very, very, very stressful. But I went in with the exact thing that I talked about, like, hey, I've been working on it for this long. We've got a really profitable, cool brand. I think in the right hands, this could be much, much more interesting than us just running it the way we have been. Our investors are ready for their return. Here's what we've got. Here are the assets. Here's the brand. Here's the channel. Here's the audience. And I think we were very lucky that those options that floated to the top all meant that everyone would be happy for the most part. There were a couple of partners who tried to lowball us and it wasn't great, but having a few partners who were saying, here's the price we're willing to pay. When you look at the waterfall of all that, investors do well. They're willing to invest in our employees and keep them around. So
hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.